Welcome to a pivotal moment in the world of broadcast as we proudly present the Men's Mental Health Show featuring the renowned Larry Mabry in collaboration with the Maassen Group. This essential exploration of men's mental health wouldn't be possible without the invaluable support of Rainier Avenue Radio World. Now, let's dive into this crucial conversation with Larry Mabry and the Maassen Group. Your mental well-being matters. Here's Larry Mabry.
Hey, what's up, guys? Hopefully you guys are doing well on this beautiful, December 16, 2024. For those people that chimed in with us last week, I talked about having some guests. So to my right, we have my friend Blair Daly, as well as his compadre, Joe Cook. They're from the WA, or the Washington Initiative for Boys and Men. You know, this is a men's mental health show, so I want to kind of bring in some flavor as far as what's going on in Washington. So let's chime in. What's going on, Blair? How you doing? What's up, Joe?
Doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having us here.
Super blessed. Thank you. Okay, cool. So Blair, real quick, you want to kind of let the viewers kind of know kind of what you're doing, and then after you're done, Joe, you can talk about kind of what's going on with you.
Sure. Thank you. Well, for my day job, I work for a local city government on transportation projects. But our connection here to men's mental health is I spend a lot of my free time leading something called Washington Initiative for Boys and Men, which is basically advocacy for all of Washington's 4 million boys and men from all backgrounds and all ages. So I'm kind of involved in the political space. So the two main activities that I do with Washington Initiative for Boys and Men are advocacy journalism, where I'm researching stories, writing articles, making videos, and then also like grassroots political organizing and advocacy, where I'm following what's going on in the state legislature through the lens of, are we doing what we should be doing to help uplift our state's male population, our boys and men, while continuing to not neglect the well-being of any other population groups. So our main project in terms of the legislative advocacy is to try to get a state commission on boys and men established.
Okay.
If we were to succeed in that, we'd be really making some history, because there are no other state governments that have commissions focused on boys and men. And I'll just briefly run down the 5 focus areas that we propose for a state commission on boys and men to work on. Those being number 1, education and skills of boys and men. Number 2, mental health and physical health. 3, jobs, careers, and financial well-being of boys and men. Number 4, fatherhood, family, and relationships. And then number 5, experiences of males in court systems.
Yeah. Okay, great. And so what are some things that you notice in here in Washington from your experience with those particular things you highlighted?
Well, when we do disaggregate different numbers and statistics by sex or gender, we see there are a broad range of areas where our state's male population are experiencing disparities. And so we think those deserve some attention, so that we can at least ask, are there things that we could be doing to better support boys and men? So those disparities can be seen on the mental health side and the physical health side. For example, rates of suicide or just life expectancy. We've actually seen a growing life expectancy gender gap in Washington, where now boys born today are expected to live 5 years shorter lives than their female peers.
Wow.
But we see disparities in other places, education in particular, where on average, boys, I think statewide, or at least in the Seattle area, are about a grade level behind their female peers when it comes to reading and writing. And then on the math side, things have mostly evened out. And so many people might assume, well, you know, the reading and writing disparities for boys are kind of balanced out by the math and science disparities for girls. It's actually not much the case. Girls have caught up largely in terms of just at least meeting standard in science and math in Washington, whereas boys are struggling in terms of graduation rates, reading and writing, and then just enrollment in higher education as well.
I got you. Okay. And so what kind of got you into this space?
Well, it was 5 years or so ago that I came to this place of actually gaining a stronger empathy for and concern for men as a population group. And I sometimes feel weird saying that, because like I am a man, right? So shouldn't I have some sense of empathy for fellow men? And I found that actually in many ways I didn't so much. I would say there were some cultural narratives that were negative about men that I had believed too much, and that I think I had put a bit too much stock in. Nowadays there's lots of conversation around toxic masculinity and some of those issues are real, and need work. But if the word toxic is the main word associated with the word masculinity, that's a problem, because there are many positive elements of what men are inclined to naturally be, and masculinity can look like a lot of different things. But I have experienced some hardships, I would say, that grew my heart and empathy for boys and men, including depression. I've had a few episodes of depression that were really scary. Fortunately, I had some good help, and we could talk more about what that looked like for me if we wanted to later on.
Okay.
But additionally, my parents divorced when I was 14, so I was a fatherless adolescent boy. My mom, worked real hard and did a great job raising me from age 14 onward, with support from my dad in certain ways, but for various reasons, I haven't had a close relationship with my dad for most of my life since I was 14, and that has been sad. And it took a little while for me to come to grips with what I was missing out on by not having a dad in my life. At first I was just kind of relieved because his presence, there was just conflict in the home, conflict between me and him, conflict between him and my mom. And so for him to be away was a relief at first. But over time, I think it settled in what I was missing out on by not having him around. And perhaps that's one of the things that brought on my depression in the first place. And then I experienced some other areas of, I would say, gender bias that affect men that also made me more concerned for making sure that men and boys are treated well and treated fairly.
Okay. Do you care to share at least one experience that you noticed?
Well, on that last part, I mean, one experience that I've had is in the realm of domestic violence, where I was in a relationship with a woman who was violent toward me. And so this is, uncomfortable to talk about. Domestic violence is often thought of as like a realm of women's issues, where it's just a matter of men mistreating women.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was it's not just a matter of men mistreating women. There are also men who are mistreated, that women can be violent. They can be abusive as well. I do not mean to minimize the extent to which, women experience severe injuries in domestic violence. A pretty large majority of domestic violence homicides are women who are killed. And there's a lot of domestic violence that goes on that doesn't reach the level of homicides or serious injuries, but that is bad nonetheless, that is making people existing in relationships where they feel unsafe and uncomfortable, and they can't thrive. And so I did experience that. It was a one-way abuse. I will clarify. In some relationships, the abuse can be multi-directional. The violence can be multi-directional. But I think the way that relationship played out would have been different in terms of the advice that I got in that relationship if the sexes were reversed and I was a female who was experiencing violence from a male partner.
Gotcha. I appreciate you sharing that, because I know that could be a little tough emotionally. So thank you for sharing that. Okay. Yeah, it does take a lot of courage. For those individuals that know, we talk a little bit about that, taking the courage to speak up. So I appreciate that very much, Blair. Okay, cool. So let's kind of switch gears here a little bit. Joe, kind of tell us a little bit about you and kind of what do you want to talk about today?
Yeah, again, thanks so much for having the opportunity to come here and get a chance to talk with you. For my day job, I work in the aerospace and defense industry. But my connections to this initiative are really through Blair. Blair and I do go to the same church, and we've connected through that as well. And a lot of my kind of focus here within this space is really primarily with our youth. I am a youth leader. I got 11th, 12th grade boys, a super fun age and a super fun group. For those that are watching this, again, if you have the opportunity to be engaged in any type of mentorship or any type of connecting with our youth, again, a lot of our young boys in particular really need it. So it's a really fun place to be, and a great lens into kind of how things are going in our country right now. But I do see, particularly with, within our youth, right, there's a lot of right now lack of identity, a lack of direction, and a lack of kind of an understanding of what, if the world is talking about toxic masculinity, what does positive masculinity look like? And so having an opportunity to kind of engage with them, speak with them, and be able to talk with them on a regular basis is really cool. An experience for me, really getting into some of the plights of kind of what's going on. And I think especially with the current circumstances around social media, there is a lot of mental health aspects where young men in particular are struggling. And so I love being a part of this initiative. I got the chance to work with Blair on the legislation that he was just talking about. And really just trying to make sure we, really encompass, the entire breadth of all men across all spectrums, right? Of all races, all backgrounds. and making sure we're trying to do the best we can to address the issues of all those people. So it's really, really cool. Really love the work, and really hopeful that this year we'll at least get a hearing for our commission and see where things lead.
Okay, great. I appreciate you sharing that. And I'll actually work with I would say 11th and 12th as well. So I definitely know what you're saying with that. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of support we can do to support young boys as well as men. And so I'm just curious to see. So as far as Blair, you mentioned something about the legislation. So what are some things that we can kind of do to kind of support that? So feel free to kind of share. What do you think some things we could do?
This will be our 4th year introducing a bill to establish a state commission on boys and men. The legislative session starts in January, so it's coming up pretty soon. January 13 is the first day. The legislature alternates between long sessions and short sessions. And so this year is going to be a long session, meaning it lasts about 100 days. So it'll go like January through April. But January and February are crunch time for getting a hearing on the bill. What that means is that every bill is referred to a different committee that specializes in a certain topic area. And we expect the Commission on Boys and Men bill to exist both in the House and the Senate. So they're going to be companion bills. They're the same bill, but they kind of have 2 different routes to get through the legislature. So we would love to hear from anyone who wants to help us advocate. The best thing basically is to get in touch with me directly by sending me an email or reaching me through social media. And then I will just find out a few things about you, like what legislative district you live in, what communities you're connected to that might be able to help advocate, and then can get you cooperating with us in ways large or small. There's very small ways you can get involved, and then there's some more extensive ways, like Joe and I will travel down to Olympia sometimes. We got to put our suits on and look good, but we do make for a good duo. A couple of tall guys, probably younger than the average age of folks walking around the Capitol, and I think we look good, and then we try to be prepared.
Doing the best
and so
I can, man.
People can join us to go down to Olympia and speak to legislators that way, or having virtual meetings with legislators is great too.
Okay, great. So so it sounds like basically people can just kind of support you through the bill, and that'll be coming up, you said January?
Yeah. And so I'll just mention, the website to learn about this is waboysandmen.org. That's waboysandmen.org. And there's a contact page there. My email address, just info@waboysandmen.org. And then social media accounts are also just waboysmen, WA-boysmen.
Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. So is there, just going back to you, Joe, so kind of what kind of got you into this space as far as like supporting boys and men?
Yeah, I mean, again, I understand the body I represent. I am a male, identify as a male. And, I think there's a lot of unique things in our current culture that a lot of men are struggling with, beyond just, particularly the youth that I work with. I think I saw a study, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I know some folks maybe watching this know a little more detail than I do. I need to get more on the stats on this, but I believe CNN published an article stating that I think 48% of men reported in 2023 that they are struggling with loneliness. And so I think it's really an epidemic across the country right now of men feeling like they lack connection, they lack peers that they can go to. I think 1 in 5 men felt they had, a peer that would reach out to them or check in on them if they had a significant issue in their life. And so it's a real big epidemic, I think, across the board, just anecdotally from my private conversations and people that I speak with. And so I just think, as men, it's our responsibility to both uplift each other, continue to support another, and continue to push forward to try to create a better future for all of us. And so, I think it's a really important thing to do, and especially being, a young man of color, understanding what those role models are, understanding, our role in our communities to actually give back and help bring up the next generation is something that I'm just really, really passionate about. And so I'm thankful to be part of this cause and be able to partner with Blair on some of this work. I think it's really, really important. And especially in a state like Seattle, in a state like Washington, and in a city like Seattle, where we have, just a lot of broad perspectives. It's really, really cool that if we could make some headway here, I really think we could be a great champion state for the rest of, the country. So,
yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And because I work in the mental health space, I do talk to a lot of the men, and I would definitely agree. I mean, just within the therapist space, you just don't see a lot of men in that space. And so a lot of times men just don't feel comfortable, speaking to young ladies, because they just want that male perspective. So I agree with you. And so I would definitely, encourage all my listeners, maybe, grab a friend, try to help your brother out, as well as some other men out there, give us a call and just check in to see what's up. And I think within our female counterparts, I think socially it's more accepted, just kind of reach in and reach out. So I feel like you're right on point with that, Joe. Right. So what can we do? So any suggestions that you have as far as, what we could do to try to reach out and try to be a little bit more communal as men? Any suggestions? And that could be for Blair or Joe.
I could take a stab at it first. I
Okay,
mean,
sure.
yeah, I definitely think, one, to your point, just making it more aware, right? I think one of the things that we've talked about within those 5 pillars that Blair spoke about, that the bill would cover, is just, the access points to men getting, mental health resources, right? Just whether that is the actual physical layouts. We have a lady that's part of our advocacy team as well, Anna Silvers, who works in that space. And she talks a lot about even just, going into a therapist's office. Sometimes both the imagery or the actual setup of the office can be more leaning toward feminine taste. And so just, again, something as simple as, a stereotypical, sometimes the people say like a blue room compared to a pink room, right? But I know that stuff can seem kind of minute or not super big, but those type of potential biases can actually really sway a man from feeling comfortable in a therapist chair at a counseling session and others, right? So being able just to address some of those type of things and kind of provide some light on that, I think would be very helpful. One, but then two, just again, as you said, just checking in on your friends, right? I mean, legitimately, it takes a little bit extra time, and then, we all have busy lives and have a lot going on, but just, actually taking a second to send text and say, hey, brother, hey, love you, man. Hope you're doing well. Just checking in can go a really long way for someone that could potentially be struggling with, a variety of issues. So I think just taking that proactive step, checking in on your brothers, making sure everyone, especially at times like this, around the holidays and a lot going on. Yeah. Holidays can represent, a lot of good things for people, but also some really negative things at times. So just
you're right.
Taking that second can be really helpful. But I don't know, Blair, if you have anything you'd add to that.
I'll just say one thing. I was in some basketball leagues. I had some stuff going on when COVID hit and those stopped. And then it took me a long time to re-engage. So it was just last week that I got myself signed up for a basketball league again. And I realized I'm not socializing very much. I'm not spending very much time with other people. But basketball is at least going to be good for me. I love to compete and it's good exercise. And then I will interact with some brothers on my basketball team.
Yeah. And I like what you said, because I feel like, as men, a lot of times we'll connect on the sports, right? I play tennis. I have other friends that play different sports. And I agree, like connecting on the sport level or just different organizations, I think are beneficial. I know when I came from the Midwest, Michigan, coming here during COVID, that was tough. I would even go on the tennis court and there's people would kind of look at me like, who are you? I'm like, really? It was a big adjustment. And so I would definitely encourage, for people to kind of reach out, as Joe mentioned, but also try to socialize as far as your groups, organizations, and trying to chime in and type in too, right? Try to connect with other organizations. I know here in Columbia City, there's different events going on. So make sure you kind of chime in that way. Any other suggestions you guys have too, as far as men trying to work on their mental health? No? Okay. Anyway, I just want to say I appreciate you guys coming through today. Just a couple quick reminders. So January, I just want to double check the date. You said January 13th?
Yeah, but reach us as soon as possible, because we're working year round, and especially as we lead up to the legislative session, we're working on growing this advocacy network. Okay. And then what can people do to kind of support you? Send me an email at info@waboysandmen.org, and then I'll get you plugged in. For example, we're going to find out what legislative district you live in. So we'll find out what legislators represent you, who your 2 House representatives and 1 senator are. And then maybe we'll get you sending an email to them saying, hey, here are 3 reasons why I support Washington creating a state commission on boys and men to complement the good work that our existing Women's Commission and LGBTQ Commission are doing. Right. Okay, cool. And I agree. I mean, I would say when I came here to Washington, we're not knocking anything against young ladies at all, but we have to be honest, right? So, I'm 300, I roll up to a young female, things are going to be looking kind of crazy. So it's always good to kind of have just men that just had that masculine energy, right? I think that's important, that camaraderie, and also just comfortability, right? I know for me, coming from the Midwest, a lot of people I tend to connect with here
are here from Washington, but they're not from Washington, if that makes sense. Like they've been here, but they're not from here. I don't know if you've had that correlation as well. I've noticed I've met a lot of people either from St. Louis or Chicago or other places. California,
yeah,
right.
I'm LA guy,
exactly. So yeah, the implants basically. So when I noticed, coming, as you mentioned earlier, people come, it's so diverse here, but a lot of people come from different places. And I noticed those implants, we tend to have that camaraderie, right? But also too for our Washingtonians, just kind of tap in and kind of connect with people and do something different, right? So you can kind of work on that mental health as well. Joe, do you want to kind of add a little bit? You were talking about the youth. What are some other things you can kind of connect to as far as the youth with mental health?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you hit nail on the head right there. I mean, I think just, again, continuing to connect. I always tell everyone I meet, if you have the opportunity to bring someone up with you, right, if you can reach back and find a young man, either through your immediate family or through, a resource group, through a church or other foundation, it's always great to, again, really invest in our next generation. Our young men, they need it. I mean, across the board, all ethnic backgrounds, it's just there's a lack of men and male mentors in a lot of young boys' lives. Unfortunately, particularly in my community, we have a lot of boys being raised in single parent households. And so, again, just trying to bring, some of that knowledge and wisdom that you've gained throughout your life and input in that to, young man can do a lot for them. So, that's always a great way to stay plugged in and help out our young boys. And then also just making it more, living out kind of the testament of your own mental health and being able to question and be open and honest about some of the things you're struggling with. Right. I think that's one thing that we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but, a lot of times men don't feel that they're able to express these kind of things, or they don't feel like there's a role model that allows them to, actually really express and talk about their feelings in a way that's productive and can help. Right. So just, continuing to model that for others and making that more accessible, something that people could see themselves doing, I think would also be very helpful in our current situation. So
great. Yeah, I appreciate that. And for those people that chimed in before, I talked a little bit about the Jedi Council, right? Basically having those individuals around you to have skill sets in different areas. And so I just want to thank Blair and Joe for coming in today. They're now my extension of my Jedi Council, right? And so it's good to have different people around you, right, to have different skill sets, and we can kind of all come together to build a community. And so for my viewers out there, chime in and kind of let us know, did you think this was beneficial? What are some things that we could do to kind of support more boys and mental health in the area? Are there specific problems that we're noticing in the community that we might need to talk about and address? Feel free to kind of chime in and let us know what's going on with that. I'm really, really curious to see what you guys think about that. One more quick question there, Blair. You mentioned a little bit about some things that you may want to talk about a little bit later. I don't know if you feel comfortable with that, or if you don't want to do that, if there's some things that you want to kind of recap as far as the overall thing, as far as what you're doing, you want our viewers to mention before we wrap it up here shortly.
One thing I would invite viewers to do is to subscribe to my email list. The reason is because I put out one article a week. I mentioned how with Washington Initiative for Boys and Men, it's about advocacy journalism and grassroots political organizing advocacy. So that advocacy journalism side, I really enjoy the creative outlet of advocacy blogging, and occasionally that means making videos as well. And I think I cover stories that aren't covered many other places through a lens that not many other people are covering them. So, if you're interested in boys and men's issues, subscribe to that email list. And I just put out my 200th blog. And so I'm about three to 4 years into this. And so that 200th blog was kind of a nice milestone. And for that one, the topic was listening sessions focused on young men. And where I got that idea is that our Women's Commission a couple of years ago did a series of listening sessions asking the question, what do young women want? And that was totally in their purview. That's what a Women's Commission should be doing. And it's a government entity, and it's going around in Tacoma and Seattle and Vancouver and Spokane, organizing opportunities for young women to express what their concerns are, what's on their mind, what do they want legislators to know about the experience of being a young woman in Washington today. And wouldn't it be cool if we had a state commission on boys and men and it carried out those kind of listening sessions focused on young men's concerns? Now, you'd have to do that you'd have to be thoughtful and careful about how you do that, because young men talking genuinely, honestly, vulnerably about their concerns, it needs to be a trusting environment where they know they're not about to be made fun of, put down, have people roll their eyes, oh, boo-hoo, young men have problems. If that's the vibe that they get, then young men aren't going to show up. And if they do show up, they're not going to be very honest. But if you can facilitate that in a skillful way, demonstrate you genuinely are interested in empathizing with young men and what's on their mind, then I think government-sponsored listening sessions asking the question, what do young men want, would be suitable and could be productive. So we had a mom of 4 sons. So a mom who's raised 4 sons posed that idea. Hey, wouldn't it be great to have listening sessions focused on young men? And it was a guest written blog post that I published. So that's another thing I can point out is that those who have stories that they want to highlight, issues that they're passionate about, that they might want to write a guest written blog post or make a video that I could publish through my channels, I'd love to partner with you on that and can help publish your work.
Oh, that's great. So I'm hearing basically you kind of help with the community. And I also like what you mentioned earlier as far as, the empathy. I think that's important, right? I feel like in our society, a lot of times just growing up, it's hard to really be empathetic based on like how we were raised and that type of thing. So I think that's important, right? And for those individuals that need support, clearly you can always reach out to here at the Maassen Group or another professional to kind of help you with that. But it's important, to kind of do that work within yourself, right? In order for you to feel that. But again, I just want to say, guys, I appreciate you guys coming out today. Want to transition here real quick. So for you guys that's chiming in, make sure you guys check in to my guest that's going to be coming on, the show that's going to be coming on next, Better Together and Living Powerfully. Make sure you guys chime in to her. That's going to be Dr. Tracy Harrell. Make sure you guys show her some love. And I'm curious to see too, as we come back to our guys here, what are you guys thinking? You think it was beneficial? Do you guys think that, we should do more of this? I'm curious to see what you guys are thinking. Make sure you guys check in to what Blair said as far as the boys and men's, I want to say WBOYS and men.
WA Boys and Men.
Yeah, WABoysandmen.org.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we got it there on the screen. And I feel free you guys to reach out, kind of let us know what you guys thought about that. I want to say I appreciate you guys coming out. Make sure you guys show some love. And I'm going to let you guys go now. Yep, I just extended my my Jedi console there. So appreciate you guys coming out there. Make sure you guys show them some love. And without further ado, guys, I'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Appreciate it. Thank you.